Good morning. You are at 6:33 Wake Up. I am Kimberly and sharing the life and the message. 6:33 Wake Up is not about 6:33 in the morning. It is about Matthew 6:33. Go check it out. So I pray today for us to have eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to receive and react for that which He has for us. Because, you know, we need that to live in this world. And, I just look at the light shining in the window behind me, and I think how much his word is a light onto our path. That's Psalm 119. I believe it says that. And today we're talking a little bit about yeast, Pharisees, Sadducees. So let's get at it. Matthew chapter 16, verse 1. Some Pharisees and Sadducees. Now, I always have this perception of who they are, but before I came on here today, I actually Googled, what is it about these guys? What is the Pharisee blah, 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 blah. Rewind. What is a Pharisee? Well, the Pharisees and Sadducees were two specific um, groups of believers in the day, and the Pharisees were very, very serious about following the Jewish law, and they believed in the resurrection of the dead. So they like toe the line to the rules, and you get what you deserve. If you don't do this, you do this, you do that, right? Like there was very, very serious about it, and they believed in the resurrection of the dead, the Pharisees. Now the Sadducees, they were also believers of the laws, and they they were very involved with the temple and with the festivals, the sacrifices, and they held a lot of political power in the day, but they did not believe in an afterlife. Now, apparently, they were more man-made laws that they were trying to get the people to follow according to some of the scriptures of Jesus. They were a lot of man-made laws from the Jewish Torah. Um, but I'm not saying that that is man-made. God forgive me, that's not what I meant. But anyway, they were hypocrites. They were saying that the people had to do all these things, but they themselves were not doing them. And that's based from words of Jesus. Now, um, now the idea, so anyway, that's kind of who they were. And so back to verse 1, some Pharisees and Sadducees badgering him again, him being Jesus. They were pressing him to prove himself to them. And he told them, "You have a saying that goes, red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. You find it easy enough to forecast the weather. Why can't you read the signs of the times? An evil and wanton generation is always wanting signs and wonders. The only sign you'll get is the Jonah sign." Then he spun and walked away. So, I talk quite often here about seeking signs and wonders. And then Jesus is saying here, a wanton generation is always wanting signs and wonders. And all he's giving the Pharisees and the Sadducees is the sign of Jonah. Now, that is when Jesus died, and he stayed in the tomb for 3 days before he rose again. That was his sign of Jonah. But I believe he's speaking to this group of people, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, what I often tend to call are the religious people without the relationship. That's how I often have understood it for my own heart and mind. The religious people without the relationship. They're following rules and not the Lord. So I believe that Jesus is saying to the religious people without the relationship that you're not going to see signs and wonders, because if you don't believe them, you're not going to see them, right? That's that's Kim Bellrose's 2 cents. So now they were on their way to the other side of the lake. This was Jesus and his disciples. And the disciple discovered that they'd forgotten to bring along bread. In the meantime, Jesus said to them, "Keep a sharp eye out for the Pharisee and Sadducee yeast." An odd thing to say. Now, he'd just come from having these words with the Pharisees and Sadducees. And I can picture them, he's just contemplating and he's praying and he's talking to his father as they are on their way to the other side of the lake. And then, probably the disciples were chit-chatting among themselves, and then suddenly Jesus is like, out of nowhere, really saying, keep a sharp eye out for the Pharisee and Sadducee yeast. Now, the disciples are thinking he was scolding them for forgetting bread. They discussed in whispers what they should do. Jesus knew what they were doing, and he said, "Why all these worried whispers? Are you forgetting about the bread? Baby believers." I'm going to rephrase because I made a mistake there. It says, "Why all these worried whispers about forgetting bread? Baby believers, haven't you caught on? Don't you remember the 5,000 people and how many baskets and fragments you picked up? Or the 7 loaves that fed 4,000? And how many baskets of leftovers you collected? Haven't you realized yet that the bread isn't the problem?" Now you think back to the story we just read at the end of yesterday's video, I believe, where again they multiplied the few bread and the few fish and fed, what is it, 4,000 or 5,000 people that they fed. And just the previous chapter, the disciples had just seen this, and now they're worried about not having bread for the boat. I mean, how many times do you and I do that in our lives? That, we have seen God come through for us time and time again. We have seen him come through, how many times I personally have said, that you know that expression that, hindsight's 2020. I say, no, hindsight is God's sight. When we're in the midst of the trials and tribulations, when we're in the midst of the chaos and can't see our way through, can't see how God is going to provide. But you know what? You and I are here today. We are here today. He provided. Somehow or other, he took our few fish and our little bit of bread, and he multiplied it for you and for me, and he made a way, whatever that looks like in our previous circumstances. And yet, when we find ourselves in today's trial and tribulation, how often do we forget what he has done for us? Let's be careful that we too are not baby believers. Let's catch on that he is with us, that he is never, ever, ever having his arm too short. He's never, ever having his eye off of us. He is watching, and he is being the father of our hearts, the father of our character, the father of our emotions. And he is growing. He is raising us up like children. He is bringing us out of that baby believer stage into maturity where we can live and walk and have our being with him in everything and everywhere. So, like, why? So then he's talking to his disciples here, and he says, you know, how much did you collect? God's always giving us the way through. And he says, haven't you realized yet that the bread isn't the problem? So I'm saying to you today and to me today, haven't you realized yet that your problem isn't the problem? Say that again. Okay. Haven't you realized yet that your problem isn't the problem? Your faith is, your heart is, your walk is, our believer is. Those are just questions, not me saying that you're the problem. But we tend to forget, or our faith, our trust, I don't know what it is, but they calm down. And we get into this, it's like how I said, I'll be a fantastic Christian if I could just stay in my atmosphere of faith and church that, is that we spur one another on, right? But when I get into the whole drum of the drudgery of normal life, and then suddenly something happens and, it kind of shakes my faith because I forgot what it feels like over there. I forgot how he provided for me over there. And sometimes, I'm going to continue here. Jesus is saying the problem isn't the problem. He's saying the problem is the yeast. Pharisee and Sadducee yeast. And they're like, oh, we get it. But he wasn't concerned about eating. He was concerned about the teaching. He was concerned about the Pharisee, Sadducee kind of teaching that we tend to have all these rules and regulations and following. And I personally have fallen into the trap many times over my 35 years that if I have got busy with life and I have forgot to pray, then I feel like I am unworthy almost to pray or to believe that I don't deserve him making the way to multiply my bread and fish. I don't deserve because I haven't read my Bible for a week, or I haven't been to church for 3 months, or I haven't paid my tithe, or, I wasn't very nice to my next door neighbor, or, whatever the problem is, whatever the stuff is, we have this Pharisee, Sadducee thinking sometimes that if we didn't check off the list and we didn't do the stuff, then we don't receive either, that we don't have this relationship, this believer. And it's important, and I know that this is a blending and a mixture of this teaching or of these scriptures right now, but this is like the fifth time that I've redone this, and this is the first time that I feel the anointing on this, because it is important that we have that supernatural activation, that we are in relationship. Without that, you might be a Pharisee and a Sadducee. I don't know. Question it. Go to him. Seek. Like, if you do not believe in the supernatural signs, wonders, and miracles that we've seen here, the multiplication of the bread and the fish, if you don't believe those things can happen, then they're not going to happen. And what kind of teaching are you listening to, right? So apparently, what Google says about these Sadducees and Pharisees is that, that they were hypocritical, that what they were saying and what they were teaching and what they were living were different. And that that's a mirror in my face, because I I'm pretty much the same if you met me at the grocery store or in the church or in my home or wherever I am. I'm pretty much the same. I am not I'm not quiet and refined, that's for sure. But I'm not, I don't know what to say. Anyways, it is what it is. Those of you who know me know what I'm talking about, but yeah, whatever. I'm, we have to be careful that who we are in church and how we're fine. Oh, God bless. Oh, this, that, and the other thing, this wonderful Christian life. And then we don't even give God the time of day, the other 6 days of the week, that we're not in relationship with him. Or, it's like that is being a hypocrite. That is having this teaching and this law or this concept of our life, but we're not living it. Is that not hypocritical? Yes, it is. So, and then my understanding from Google and from other scriptures of this portion is that the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they kind of made their own laws, their own rules of the day, and all these the political got messed up with the the Jewish culture, and there's all this bad teaching. And Jesus was saying, you don't even know what you're doing here. Don't confuse it, basically. And he's saying, and then Jesus is saying and comparing this bad teaching, this bad living, as yeast, as bad yeast, that it gets mixed up in the bowl. Now I present to you and me today that you and me are like the bread bowl, right? We are the bowl. And inside of us, hopefully, we have a supernaturally activated believer. Because, my wake up is that I want to wake up the believer on the inside of you to actually believe and live like you believe. Now, what we are, how we're living, and what we're filling, we're putting into this bread bowl, right? How we're living, what we're listening to, who we're hanging out with, what teachings we're getting, what movies we're watching, how we're treating other people. I mean, all of this goes into our bread bowl. And if it is not good, then it's evil. It's bad. What is it doing to your mind? What is it doing to your heart? What is it doing to your emotions? And so I say to you that bad teaching and bad thinking spread rapidly in our bread bowl and affect our behavior and the believer on the inside of us. And, we have a tendency sometimes to be a little, fan based, and we have a tendency to follow a person instead of Jesus. We have a tendency to follow a group of people, whether it be friends, family, believers, I don't know, like whatever. We have a tendency to follow a group and not Jesus. And sometimes we are generational denominational. That's a big mouthful, isn't it? Sometimes we just fall into the denomination per se, or the beliefs. And I mean, this can be politically as well as religion, is that, we can fall into, and a religion can even be atheist or anti-theist, whatever it is. We can fall into this belief system that we've been taught, or that we hang around, or that has been passed on from generation to generation, from any man, any group, any set of beliefs or denomination I'm using. But the New Testament, God loved you so much, and he loved me so much, that he sent his son to make a way, this supernatural activation, to be born from above, that we can live in relationship and not in religion, and not alone, but with him. We walk our daily lives and we live it out every day, not just in a church on Sunday, not just. And so I am saying to you today that we are to follow Jesus. He is the way, not any teaching. So I am saying to you, your problem is not your problem. Let's remember the multiplication. Let's remember the signs, wonders, and the miracles. Let's remember the miracle of Jesus, the way. So I'm done. God bless you. And I pray that you know you're blessed, and that you go out and be a blessing. Bye bye.